morning. We are live. Happy Friday. It's July 29th, 2016, 8 o'clock sharp, like cheddar. Pacific time.
Yeah.
11 o'clock sharp, not so much like cheddar, Eastern. So, what was I going to say? So we were actually going to have somebody from Crunchboards this week. And then earlier this week, something came up and he said that he wasn't going to be able to make it. So I said, okay, going to have to set up just an open session, and just literally never got around to it until this morning when I said, oh, nobody's got a place to go register. So here we are. We'll have probably a small, intimate group, but look at this. People are still coming in. Here comes Joanne and Linda. I love it. I love
Joanne.
it. There's Joanne. Joanne Plan. The Joanne Plan.
How do you do?
Joanne with the plan.
Haven't seen you on the Hangouts on Friday, Joanne.
Yeah, I've had a ton of, I've been having meetings during this time, so I finally fudged my schedule and moved it around so that I could free up this hour.
You finally got your priorities straight.
I tried to, yes, I tried to.
I kid. So you want to see the new sort of prototype for the new Between Wall and Main logo?
I do.
I'll show you. I think it's pretty good. I think it's actually really good. I think it's really sexy. Hold on, I'll share my screen.
Is it smaxy?
I think it's pretty sexy. So this is kind of a low-res version.
No.
Ooh,
But this is what we got. And there's a whole story. I had, Shane McFarlane from Australia, kind of take what Erica, my assistant, had done, and just kind of rework the concept a little bit. And this is what we got. So I like it. There's meaning, obviously, Wall Street at the top, Main Street at the bottom, everything's in between, right? The bull overlooking the bear market. Shay actually came up. It was like he explained my concept better than I could when he came up with sort of the backstory behind like what this all represents. In fact, let me see if I can bring his chat up here, because I already sort of have his permission to share all this. So he says, we feel that the slightly retro feel of the logo is representative of old-style business signs that one often sees in Main Street business. The line graph sort of arrow represents the goal of what we want to do as financial advisors to help our businesses to grow their profits, their size, and scale. The green color of the arrow represents the money or profits. The arrow explodes out of the circle because that's what happens to small business that take advice and work with switched-on accountants. Their profits and growth explode into new stratospheres levels. The graph is in the center with the bull and the bear as it represents the between aspect, as in advice is between Wall and Main Street. The bull rearing over the cowering bear is supposed to represent Wall Street, but more specifically, it's supposed to represent that the business takes advice. The business that takes advice from their professional advisors stand a much better chance of conquering the bear in their own markets. So the final will just be kind of like a better quality rendering of this.
I like it.
But yeah, I think it's cool. I think it's really cool. I love what they did, because I was having trouble with just the letters, trying to get it all to fit in a cohesive way, and I think this just does it perfectly.
Yeah.
We've just been, Shane and I have been talking over the last few days. It was so cool, because at one point yesterday he was sending me messages in the Facebook Messenger, and I was about to drive. So I just tapped a little phone thing. And so I had a call with him over the Facebook chat, between here and the other side of the world. And it was just so cool to me that we could just like that, pick up and start talking. And, we were going over this. We had the word between in the logo, and we agreed that we could take it out because it's clearly representative of how everything's in between Wall Street and Main Street just from the visual. So
nice.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. And then there's
you get a star for that.
Well, give it to Shane too. I think he did a great job on this.
Shane, you get a star.
Shane McFarlane gets a star. His whole team, actually. He had like a bunch of people, I guess, working on this. And we have a concept for the new layout of the site that they're working on, so I'm excited. It's weird to be on the receiving end of help. I'm not used to that. I'm usually the one providing the help.
Yeah.
What does something like that cost to do?
You know, I honestly don't know because he's kind of doing this pro bono right now. I mean, he's going to be shown on the site as a sponsor and a contributor, and I would guess that something like this. I mean, if you want, there's a lot of sites you can go out to get a logo done, but you won't have the kind of input that I've had with him. I think to get this kind of input and be this specific about something that truly represents your mission, I would have to say if I were paying him for it, I would expect this would cost around $500, maybe. You know,
Okay.
for the design.
Yeah, I would say about that. That's what I was going to say, because I have a couple of graphic artists that I have as clients, and their logo developments are anywhere between $500 to $1,200, depending on how many revisions and meetings are involved in it, and the complexity of the logo.
Yeah,
so, and whether they're going to create like fully branded images on top of that, like Facebook banners and Twitter banners and, YouTube banners and, creating the whole kit for you versus just providing you with the image that you can do with what you please.
Yeah, and then a lot of times what you want to do, like we're actually doing here, is you need two versions depending on where you're putting the logo. So like here's another version that we have that's, darker. It's got the charcoal instead of the green, so that when we want to put it on a lighter background, like the one I just showed you is going to go on the website, but we might use this on like letterhead or something else, so it's good to have a couple different versions of it that you can use.
Do you have a purple version for me or a tie-dye version? It's
funny you say that, Joanne, because I actually do have just the thing for you. Where did it go? I think it was in the more recent ones. Oh, this is odd. I can't find it. I had it on the mobile messenger app. Earlier this morning, he sent me a list of 3, and there was one with a purplish thing. Then I was on the treadmill while we were talking, so I sent him a picture. Maybe it was. Oh, there it is on the left. So it's not quite purple. It's more of a navy.
I don't see it.
Oh, I have to share my screen, don't I?
Yeah.
That helps. So you see
that's Periscope. Ooh, I like that. That's like TARDIS blue.
Yeah, so we had that one too, but I ultimately said for the site and everything, I kind of like the charcoal and the green better. But, he said it's really easy to kind of work this stuff up once we have the main concept down.
Yeah, I like that. Don't they usually say, and this was brought up, I can't remember in one of the other groups, but for branding, don't they say that your logo and stuff there should be 3 colors?
I've heard 2 to 3 at the most. This actually breaks that rule, because if you look closely, the bull and the bear are actually each 2 different shades.
Yeah.
The bull is 2 shades of brown, and so is the bear, where the bull is darker. So you really have 4 colors here, 5. We really have almost 6 colors on this one. And the green one actually has 7, because the green one, the arrow is a different color from the green circle. The arrow darker.
It goes darker, yeah.
Yeah, we definitely broke a few rules on this one, but I'm still happy with how it looks.
Yeah.
It just means that if we want to print it up on like a T-shirt, we may have to sort of simplify it a bit.
Simplify it, and because the arrow looks like it has a cool, like almost like an ombre effect to it.
Yeah, it does. It's like shaded.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's a shady arrow.
Shady arrow.
A shady arrow. So yeah, but all in all, I'm really happy. And for once, I didn't have to do everything.
Isn't that nice?
It is nice. Well, you know what? It speaks volumes to the fact that it's important to have a team of people that you can put together, so that, it's a big lesson I need to learn over and over again, that I can't be the one to do everything. I have to leave it to the experts to do the things that they're experts in.
Yeah.
So I can focus on
We tell our clients that all the time, hire us.
I know.
We're not willing to do things.
It's the whole outsourcing model. Yeah, you have to outsource so that you can make money.
Deborah,
I'm very guilty of that. Oh, I could do it myself, and then of course I've spent 100 hours and accomplished nothing.
Yeah.
It's like where parents do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
I end up having like some piece of clip art as a logo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Deborah, I got to tell you, I was thinking about you last night. I was driving home from actually the Woodard Group meeting, and I was thinking about what you said last week when you said that you'll talk to a client and be like, give me a scalpel, because I'm going to go do surgery if you're going to do that.
Exactly.
I just absolutely love that.
I have kind of a funny story, and I thought this would be a good topic for us to talk about. And you kind of mentioned it quickly here when you were talking about your meeting with Shay. Where is the oddest place that you've had a meeting with a client, like on remote meetings? Yesterday I had a real crazy schedule, and my schedule got messed up. I was supposed to have a 3:30 meeting with a client, a remote meeting. It was going to be an initial. I've never talked to the person before. We've just emailed. It was going to be initial appointment so I could set up their QuickBooks file for them. And my schedule got changed. I was getting my hair done, and my hairdresser was running late, so I was forced to. I didn't want to cancel the appointment. I had my computer with me, and I said, well, maybe if I get done in time, I could just like hop in their office and, do the quick meeting after my hair was done and then head back to the office. Well, what happened is that my hair took longer than anticipated, and I was in the chair wrapped in foils because I have like all these colors in my hair. I had all these foils in my hair. So the lady gets into the Zoom, and I left her a chat, and I had everything on mute. I had the video on mute and the audio on mute because I was still in the salon with a lot of music. And I messaged her and I said, I'm running a couple minutes behind. Just hang on in here. And she looked perturbed. You know what I mean? She looked like she was having a bad day. She looked very irritated. I'm like, oh, great. This lady's not going to appreciate the fact that, I didn't get to the meeting right on time. So she finished up doing the foils in my hair. They're literally sticking straight up like I'm speaking to the alien god. And she allows me to go into the pedicure room because it was very quiet and there was like a soft couch. So I'm sitting in the pedicure room, and I, first I unmute myself and I apologized. I introduced myself. I said, my afternoon got crazy. I was delayed because I had a nail in my tire. So
that's what you told her?
No, it was that was the true story. But the reason why my appointment got delayed and I was delayed is I on my way to my hairdresser, I got a nail in my tire. I got the tire changed, and then I got to the hairdresser, blah, 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 blah. So I go, and so this is where I am right now. And I turned the start video, and she saw me, and she started cracking up. She goes, this just made my day. Thank you. So, she's like, I just had a horrible time with her. She's having car problems too. And so we literally talked for like 15 minutes. I closed the deal, and I already set up her file. I did that last night. So that was like, I was in foils live on Zoom with a client and closed the deal. So I was just curious, is there any other
You could have told her that was your Wi-Fi. That's how you got
Wi-Fi. I don't normally look like this, but so where is the oddest place that you've had a consult with a client is what I want to know.
Well, I do it from cruise ships all the time. I mean, I don't think that's odd. I just think it's different.
Yeah, because that's like you're on vacation or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like you're in the bathroom or something doing a consult.
Well, see, the bathroom's echo, so I don't like doing it in there.
Yeah, that's true. What about you, Seth?
So I have one it's not a remote story, but it's definitely a different way of getting together with a client. So I had somebody who wanted to get together with me, and normally if it's local like that, we'll get together at a restaurant for lunch or dinner. And then maybe about a year and a half or so ago, I said, I was meeting people on Fridays. I usually reserve Fridays as the day that, I go have lunch with somebody. There's a restaurant I love in downtown Burbank. It's called Gordon Biersch. It's actually a chain, so some of you may have been to one. And I'll meet them there, and we'll have lunch at like 1 in the afternoon on Friday, because the reality is it kills the whole afternoon. Right? Because lunch is going to take at least 2 hours. After that, I don't feel like running back to the office to work for an hour or two and then be done for the day. So that kind of worked out. But then after I was doing this for a while, and there's definitely benefits to it. I mean, in one case, one of these lunch meetings turned into thousands of dollars in business for me. The guy wound up hiring me, and I helped him with his website and a bunch of other stuff. So ultimately, I decided, you know what? It's still not the most effective use of my time. I'd rather be home either producing content or actually on the clock, so to speak, working for somebody during that time. So I said, if people want to meet with me that badly, let them do what I do and get up really early in the morning on a Saturday, and I'll meet them for breakfast on a Saturday. So that was the thing I was doing for a while, but still it was meeting for a meal. Then more recently, and this is where I have what I think is a little unusual along the lines of what you described, Joanne, is I said to the guy, I said, rather than eat, let's do something healthy. And I explained to the guy that I like to go hiking on Saturday mornings. I said, why don't you meet me at Griffith Park here in Los Angeles, and we'll go on a hike. And it's a great environment to be in, to have a talk. And we can talk about anything. We can certainly talk about business, and we could talk about whatever else comes to mind. And I just acknowledged right up front. I said, I realize it's a little different, maybe unconventional. And the guy said, well, yeah, it is pretty unconventional for a business meeting. And I said, well, unconventional is my middle name. So, let's do it. And then ultimately he was, he said, well, could we do breakfast this time and then do hiking maybe the next time? And so I conceded that time and gave it and said, fine. But then we did eventually do, and I actually wound up, as a result of that, saying, I like this idea, unconventional or not. So the first time I met with somebody from 17 Hats, who are located the next city over from me. I'm in Burbank. They're in actually two cities, because there's Burbank, then Glendale, then Pasadena. So they're in Pasadena. So Ryan Groves from 17 Hats, the first time I ever met him was that same way. I had him meet me at Griffith Park, and we went hiking. So that's my kind of unusual meeting place for clients.
I like that.
Who else?
I've done it all out yard sailing. I mean, I've done it like that. Yeah. Pardon?
I like that idea.
Yeah, I mean, I love to. Hal and I yard sale every week. That's like what we do. In fact, during tax season, that's the only time we get out of the house. we have that actually on our schedule, yard sailing. And, we go. That's where we shop.
That's actually a really cool idea. I like that. You know what else would be cool? And it's just, I think it's a cool way to do something just different. And especially like if you're in a city like mine where we have a lot of sort of cultural things to do, it's like take a client to a museum and say, let's meet at the, at LACMA, the LA County Museum of Art. And let's go walk around there and talk. I mean, it's a nice, peaceful environment. It's like in our society, we're stuck with this idea that we have to go eat. Why? And then we wonder why this country has a problem. And I'm no exception, a problem with our weight.
One little trick I learned if you meet people while you eat is
I'd rather eat people while I eat.
Or maybe I eat them alive. I only order soup.
Oh, really?
I can't talk and eat a sandwich at the same time.
Right.
Because I always feel food's dropping out of my mouth. And
well, that's great. You just spit crumbs on your new client.
So I said, I'm going to order soup. And what's interesting is, if you order first and you say, well, I'm just going to have soup. And
they follow suit.
They follow suit, because then you don't mind picking up the check. So,
I love the way you think.
Try it out,
I love the way you think.
They only order two. Oh, I'll buy.
That's funny. I usually will just get like a salad or something. Usually it's in those moments where I feel like being good. So I'll just get a salad or something. But you're right, it is kind of, I just think it's actually weird that to have a client meeting or a prospect meeting and eat. It's like, because you're right, you can't really eat.
It's hard to eat and talk at the same time.
Yeah.
And then they're like, people are very conscious about when they eat, are they going to think that I'm eating the wrong food? And, here I've ordered French fries and a hamburger with cheese and mayo. And thinking going, oh, my God, no wonder they're fat.
Well,
I'm fat because, my salad, I have blue cheese dressing and I didn't put it on the side. And
well, so Deborah, that's when during the conversation you say, so let's talk about your health insurance plan.
But just think about it. When you go on a date, basically when you're meeting a client for the first time, you're on a date.
Yeah.
And, when you went out on a date for the first time, going out to eat, you're so conscious of what you're going to order and what you're going to eat, where you look funny eating that, or what are they going to think of what you order. I know as a girl, I think like that all the time. I don't know if boys think like that. I know my husband doesn't think like that. He says, doesn't care. But
yeah, I'm like that. I'm like, I don't care. In fact, it's funny. I had Mike Milan in here from Finagraph in town a couple weeks ago, and I took him out to one of my clients' restaurants. It's one of my favorites. And this is where you go and you don't care about what you're eating. And there's nothing really healthy for you to eat there. I shouldn't say that. You can get a veggie burger and a salad if you want. It's a burger joint, and you go for the burgers. And like I told him, I said, get a filet burger because it's the most amazing hamburger you'll ever eat. It's like a little strip of filet mignon on top of a patty. In an English muffin doused in marrow butter, and I mean it's just delicious. You don't even need like ketchup or anything.
I would be dripping down my chin. Right?
It will be all over you, no question. It's like that Carl's Jr. concept. Like the idea is to get messy, but to eat a burger. And so I told him, I said, Mike, get the filet burger. I said, I'm going with the veggie burger because I got to watch my carbs and all that. And so I get a veggie burger wrapped in lettuce when I go there to be healthy.
Why bother?
But because I've got to watch my glucose level there.
No, I mean, why? I guess I would have somebody order that burger and just sit there and watch the meat and go, oh.
Yeah, exactly. You could just drool.
I'm vicariously eating your burger.
But now the other thing this place has is they have these amazing garlic fries with actual like little pieces of garlic on the fries. So I'm not going to go home and kiss my wife that night for sure. She's not going to want to for probably 3 days to come. But they are amazing, you know. So
just make her eat some too, and then you're okay.
There you go, honey. Here, eat this. I'll just shove it down her throat. But yeah, so that's a place I'll go if it's like with Mike. It was like kind of an after hours, and obviously it's not like I'm trying to woo him as a client. We already have a good long-standing relationship, so that's a little different. But
yeah, you're already like married, so it's okay. You can eat anything.
Pretty much, exactly. You don't care. The guard's down.
Yes, right.
There's
You can pass gas. It's okay.
The honeymoon period is over. Who else? Dennis, have you ever had meetings with clients in strange places?
Not really. I've met with them at their houses or their homes. I met with this one guy last week. I don't do it as often as I used to, but this guy I met with last week, he's like about 5 years older than me, but he's got, I go in there and he's hooked up to this respirator, you know, with oxygen. There's a sign on the door that says no smoking because of oxygen. Turns out he's worked in all these different industries where his lungs are shot. He's like about 5 years older than me, and but that was kind of memorable. I'm trying to think of anything that's no, nothing comes to mind. I'm trying to meet more and more people over the internet.
Right.
You know.
You want to hear a funny story? This one's, I'll be honest, I'll preface this and warn you, this one's a little bit racy. But a client of mine actually had an interesting experience meeting with a client of his one time. Actually, it wasn't a client of his. It was his outgoing bookkeeper. That's right. This was many years ago, actually. And this is when I was taking over this guy's bookkeeping. He said that, what do you call it? He said that he was telling me about the outgoing bookkeeper that I was essentially replacing. And, to each his own in terms of what your own personal, feelings are or whatever. So I just want to preface what I'm about to explain by saying that, but from my client's perspective, it was just a very odd experience because apparently the first time he had gone, he went to the bookkeeper's home to meet him for the first time, like, a year or so before that when he first started working with that guy. And he walked into the guy's house to meet with him, again, professional meeting. They're there to talk about my client's bookkeeping. And he walks in, and apparently, as he walks in, it was like impossible to miss. He notices to his right a gigantic flat screen TV with the volume on, and there was clearly a gay porn film. And he was just like, okay, I wasn't expecting that. So I thought that was an interesting client meeting experience for somebody to have. Like, how do you even, do you just ignore it and pretend like you didn't see it? Do you acknowledge it? How do you, oh, great film. I caught that one last week.
That would make me uncomfortable. Just porn altogether,
Yeah, it was the sort of thing you would have thought that the client would have had the foresight to maybe pause it, turn the screen off, before you have a professional meeting in your home. But I guess he just wanted to make sure it was painfully obvious, like, hey, this is my lifestyle, this is who I am and what I'm into, take it or leave it. That I respect, full respect for that. But it would catch me off guard, and I feel like I've been exposed to and tried just about everything at least once.
I had this one meeting. It was I used to do QuickBooks consulting on site, and I went to this woman's place of business, and I get in there. She's probably in her mid-30s, and she was wearing this sleeveless blouse. And the first thing I noticed is that she has this nose ring, And then on her arm, from her shoulder down to the top of her hand, she had the tattoo of a snake. And so I just kind of like, here I am dressed up, and so I had kind of a hard time keeping a straight face while I'm trying to do QuickBooks training with her. So anyway, it struck me as kind of odd. Of course, I'm kind of old, so maybe that's common.
Here in Daytona Beach, if you don't have a tattoo, you're the weirdo.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, you don't have a tattoo? No.
What's wrong with you? Yeah, Los Angeles is sort of like that too.
Or
Joanne,
a piercing or something.
Yeah.
do we have a lot of tie-dye in Syracuse?
In my house, yes. Not necessarily in Syracuse, but in my house there is.
Isn't it funny how I know pretty much where all of you live?
It is scary, but that's okay.
It is pretty scary. Adam, wake up. What's your story? Look, tell us about a strange client meeting.
Wake up, Adam.
Oh, don't forget to unmute.
Oh yeah, okay. I don't know, not much. I've only been in the business for like 2 years, so I really
Gotcha. All right.
need a car with Starbucks. I mean, that's as exciting as I get.
So it's still early. It's still early. You'll get to have some experiences. I'm trying to think of some other funny client ones. But
Well, we've talked to clients while we're at the Naked Beach. They don't know that,
oh,
though.
that's funny.
Now.
You're at the Naked Beach?
Pardon?
You're at the Naked Beach?
Yeah.
That's funny.
If you've never gone there, you got to try it. It's the best.
I'm afraid I might get something sunburned that has a scene.
Are you allowed to be? Are you allowed to be clothed while you're at the Naked Beach? Like, can you?
Yeah, but then you're the weirdo.
Right, you're the weirdo, but you won't get chastised if you show up there and
No, unless you if you take a camera and start taking pictures and pointing.
Are you kidding? I want to go with my DSLR and just
You could use your new camera, Seth.
exactly.
High def.
Meanwhile, half the time I probably pull the camera away and want to be like, "Could you please put a bathing suit on?" That's disgusting.
I tell you what, it is not a sexy place. It is
I'm
like
sure
a bunch
it's
of
not.
old fat people sitting around. You know?
That's exactly what I
It's
would.
much sexier on the regular beach with all the bikinis and all that stuff. You know.
Yep. That would be a great place to invite a client. You know, the thing I thought of is if I really
Get to
don't,
know the real them.
if I really don't want the client, if I don't want the prospect, what I might suggest is that we just go to the movies. We can't talk. Let's go see a movie.
They take them one of those gay porn films.
Yeah, there's this new one that's out. I think you should try it.
I know this guy that has the video.
Yeah. In fact, let's go to this guy's house. He's always got good movies going.
Yeah.
Great. So I'm sure you've not seen this one.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So what else is going on? It's, they're about to come out with the completely shifting gears. The gross domestic product report comes out today for Q2.
Mhm.
And I'm saying to myself, why does it take a whole month to figure it out? I mean, I figure I guess maybe it takes that long to compile all the data and go through whatever red tape they have to go through before they officially issue numbers, which frequently get revised in subsequent quarters anyway. But then my question is, how do we think this actually impacts our business? It's
What
like
is
Deborah
it?
says, it's a history report.
History report. Who cares?
It's a history report. This is how we did last quarter. And I guess presumably it's an indication of how we might be doing this quarter. Maybe. But I don't know. That seems like a shot in the dark to me.
I just think most accountants, of course, all of us are real forward thinking and technology oriented. But you talk to the majority of accountants out there, and a lot of them are still backwards. One of my biggest clients, they use Bill.com, works great. And brought a new CPA in who said, oh, you shouldn't be using that because, so they actually are dropping using Bill.com. And I'm like, well, then I can't work with you anymore. That's it.
Were they going to write checks?
They're going to write checks. I said, do you realize what you're doing now? I mean, oh, yes, but you're paying $1.49 for a check. And I'm like,
What are you paying in postage?
I said, well,
Time.
it's not the postage. I mean, what's the check stock? I said, do you realize you're so worried about costs? The time to me is the most precious commodity you have. And now you're going to spend 10 times as long to do the same task.
You know, you should do, Deborah?
Huh?
You should get out, like, go to Staples. You can actually still get like one of those old ledger paper pads. And be like, listen, you know, while we're at it, as long as we're going to go back to writing checks, first of all, let's handwrite the checks. Let's not print them. Because then what we'll do is I'll take you off of accounting software and we'll go back to this ledger paper to keep our journals, because the paper is going to be cheaper probably than the software you're paying for.
I tell people that too. A lot of us are very, you know, we want to not spend money. So when I see in Facebook or blogs or posts, I'm not going to do QBO because it's, you know, $20 a month. And I'm thinking to myself, what? I mean, you know, I said, what's a cheap solution for the client?
You know, the problem
$20 is cheap. You know,
the problem
I said, use paper and pencil. That costs nothing.
The problem is they don't associate their time with the cost. I mean, you never get your time back.
Exactly. And I stress that when I'm meeting a client for the first time. I said, you know, the biggest thing we're going to save you is time. It's the one resource we will never get back. So if I can save you an hour a week, you know, just think of the time we would save, or an hour a day. What's that worth to you?
Well, the time in writing the check, having to, you know, stick in the envelope, stamp it, take it to the post office, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that adds up.
And the approval, I mean, just think of the approval process, going through an office, having to approve it, and then wait for somebody to sign it, and then somebody else has to mail it, and then they have to wait till they get it, you know. And then, of course, I always think, well, when the auditors then come in and they want to see the backup and the documentation, now we have to go find it all again. I mean, I just think, oh my God.
And that's your time that's getting chewed up too, meeting with the auditors because they don't understand this. And you
look, all I know is that once I moved my own company file to QuickBooks Online, which I did this year, I had wanted to do it last year, and then I sort of didn't get to it. And then a quarter into the year, and I was like, that's going to be too much work to catch all that up. So I dispensed with it. And then this year, because of that, I made it a point to make sure I got right on at the beginning of this year and I didn't even convert my data. I was like, you know what, it's a chance for a fresh start. I don't like to migrate data. I would much rather start fresh with it. It's an opportunity. You're on a new platform. Let's rebuild the whole infrastructure of what your accounting file looks like. It's a great chance, a great opportunity to do that. You need to reference the old information that's there if we need it. So I did that. And all I know is what I'm finding just from my own firsthand experience is that it has taken me a fraction of the time that it took me on desktop to maintain my own accounting records. I've always done it just once a week on Sundays. There's usually not a whole lot to do. The most laborious thing I have to do is import all my PayPal activity, you know, with Transaction Pro Importer.
I did the same thing as you did, Seth. I started from scratch, but I do have to say a word of warning, because this happened to me. So it's like, I always like to talk about, you know, you learn from your mistakes. The one thing I wish I would have done, because I was using T-sheets and it was going into my desktop beautifully for all my timing and billing, right? When I set up my new file in QBO, I did not bring in my customers, and I should have.
Because that screws up your other apps?
Now it just effed up my apps connection with T-sheets. So what I had to do, they were amazing. I have to say, the customer support at T-sheets is beyond compare. They walked me through exactly what I needed to do, and basically I just needed to make sure that my customers, because here's what I was doing, of course. I have a lot of, and this is the problem with QBO. Not a problem, but it's a good problem, but a bad problem. Because of all the apps that you can connect to QBO, I also have 17 hats going into QBO, all right? So customers that I'm setting up in 17 hats are going into QBO, and then that's trying to sync into T-sheets. And what was happening is I was getting duplicates of names and having names being slightly different in all the different apps. So I had to go through and make sure that every single app has the customer set up the exact same way, and then merge those duplicates inside of QBO. So it took me a little bit of time, but as soon as T-sheets was wonderful in walking me through exactly how I needed to get that so that everything could then migrate over. And I haven't had an issue since.
So what do you recommend that we do then?
You know what I did along those lines, John, is I started over with all the apps. Like I had Bill.com with desktop. I started a new company in Bill.com.
Yeah.
sheets. Just so if you're going to start a new company in QuickBooks, you really, I think, almost need to start a new company in all the apps that you're going to tie in.
Yeah, my only problem is I still had time out there, and I didn't want to bring the time into the desktop version. I wanted to bring it, and start billing people and doing that.
Why are you billing on time?
because I do have some clients that I bill on time. My social media clients, I do some things with time. And it's not necessarily that let's put it this way. I don't necessarily bill on time, but I pay my employees per hour. And I also like to see how much time I'm spending on jobs so that I can adjust my monthly rates as possible, as I need. So I do it more of an admin, but it's also making sure that everything's being moved through my office and that my employees are doing everything that they need to be doing. So I wanted that inside of QBO. But what I probably would have done is I probably would have cleaned up my customers first between T-Sheets and the desktop version, making sure that I didn't need those things anymore. And then I would have brought in my customer list. I would have imported my customer list only into QBO, and then I wouldn't have had a problem. I didn't do that. It was like one stupid small thing that I should have done, and it caused me a little bit of work, but it's kind of one of those, you live and learn lessons. And
I find that the mistakes that I make are really the biggest benefit to me because that's where I learn how to do it.
Exactly.
Always. I mean, look, that's how I think we learn most of the time, especially after we've got some experience. The way I learn is by making mistakes. And I was talking about this with somebody, I think just yesterday. We were talking about the onboarding process, with our clients, and how I learned basically from screwing it all up. I had some clients that I onboarded where I really did not have a process for onboarding in place a couple of years ago, and it frustrated the clients. I lost a couple of clients behind it, and they were honest with me and said, "Seth, it doesn't seem like you have any onboarding process." And because I was kind of winging it, thinking, "What do I need a process for? All right, I'm going to take over. Give me your QuickBooks file. I'm going to give me your bank statements. I'm going to start entering and reconciling stuff. What more do I?" And then I started to realize that I needed more of a process, but that's how I learned. And then I designed what I feel is a really good process. And then I brought 17 hats into the mix so that now that process is substantially automated. And
so what is your process? Tell us your process.
I don't know. I don't know. No, I just wing it. No. So the first thing that happens is the first thing I did was I sat down and I said, all right, I'm going to write up a document. And I'm going to explain in this document from my own understanding what the process is. And I started outlining it in like bullet point fashion. It's like, okay, the first thing I need is I need to review their balance sheet. I need to review their accounting. And, so I'm going to need that information from them. And as I'm going through the document and outlining the steps, I started realizing, wait, but now this needs to happen before that thing. And I started realizing why it was so important to get this organized, because I started realizing now that I was laying out in black and white in front of me, it was becoming very clear that things needed to happen in a certain order. So ultimately what that document evolved into was the welcome letter that goes out to the client. The minute they say, yes, Seth, I'd like to move forward, let's pull the trigger. So the first thing that 17 Hats does is it sends out that email that says, and then I have it in big, bold, black print. Read this carefully. There's really important information in here because it's kind of long. There's a lot of detail in it. And I explain, I've taken the time to lay this out to make sure that there's no confusion or frustration about what this process is going to look like. And there's some really important steps for you to follow in here. And then some of it is just like line items where I'm explaining, hey, we're going to use Smartsheet as the collaborative project management tool. And the first thing I say before anything else is, and by the way, during the first 4 weeks of onboarding, we're going to have a 1-hour remote session where I'm going to log in with you, and we're going to go through everything and make sure that any questions are asked and answered. And we're probably going to find out about some questions that we had that we didn't know we had that we're going to get answered during these 4 weekly calls. And if we need to extend it beyond 4 weeks, then so be it. That's what we'll do. And that was my way of really providing the ultimate sort of catch-all for making sure that nothing slips through the cracks. Because I found that that was really what it came down to in the end. That's what was frustrating those clients originally, was the lack of communication. I was like, all right, just give me what I need, let me run with it. Like, drop the duffel bag over the fence, I'll take it and run. And don't worry about it. And it's like, that's all they're going to do is worry about it, especially in the beginning when they've just made that decision to hire me, and they now kind of are looking for the reassurance that they've made the right decision. And so that 1 hour weekly call for 4 weeks, I think, is huge in terms of, there's no document I can write up that's going to accomplish what that call accomplishes, right? Because it gives me and the client the opportunity for us both to address directly with one another, here's what I need and here's what I haven't gotten yet, and what about this and how do we handle that thing, and all those things. So and then it outlines, then there's instructions for, initially I had instructions for how to upload a QuickBooks backup for desktop, but I no longer do QuickBooks desktop for clients. So that's not even in there. It's just there's a link to a short video that shows them how to add me as the accountant user on their QuickBooks Online file. And, so I link the video, so I automate as much as I can in the onboarding process by recording short little videos that, the client can watch, and then they can ask me questions in the call if there's any confusion about anything that they saw.
Great idea.
Yeah, I love the response I've gotten from clients about it. And then once that goes out, it waits like a day, and then what do you call it? And the next thing that goes out, I think, is actually the sort of engagement letter, my agreement. And that's all also handled through 17 Hats. And, like the last client I brought in, looked at that, and they reminded me that in one of our preliminary calls, I had said I would also be doing their personal books. So they said, can you add that into the agreement? Because the agreement didn't really necessarily have that. I said, sure. And it was just a real easy process. I went in there in 17 Hats, added in, a couple lines explaining that this also includes the personal bookkeeping, for them, and that we're going to keep a separate QBO file for their personal books. And, added that in, the client signed it, and then I have 17 Hats program to automatically countersign it on my behalf once they sign it. And then the next thing that happens once that step is complete is an email goes out with a link for them to initiate their monthly subscription for the fee. So, and that one is a pause in the process where I have to go in and approve it, because I've got to make sure that it's linking them to a product that's set up with the right monthly amount, depending on what we've ultimately agreed upon.
So are you using this process when you were using QuickBooks Desktop, or is this something that's...
I started it when I was using QuickBooks Desktop, but like I said, at a certain point, I just stopped doing. I won't do desktop. If I get a new client and they're on desktop, they either convert to QBO or they find someone else.
How much time do you estimate you save per client on average with QBO versus desktop?
It's hard to put a number on it, but collectively, it's just hours and hours. It's so much more efficient using QBO, especially because, and the way my process is, I'm going to do the work myself for at least the first month, possibly up to 3 months, because I feel like I want to have my head so tightly wrapped around everything that this client needs. And then I hand it off to Erica, who's my sort of number 2 in my company now. But I still work very closely with Erica, especially in the beginning, to make sure that it's ended off well. I used to do it differently. I used to feel like I just wanted to just rely heavily on them and say, here, take the ball, run with it. But I've learned I can't do that, because then if something does go wrong or the client is unsure about something, I don't know what's going on. I can't really speak to it. So I've still worked very closely with Erica. Every Friday, Erica and I do either a remote meeting where we go through all of the clients and answer any questions, and then I give her whatever training she needs to make sure that she has the knowledge that she needs to provide the service to the client. And then this week we actually met yesterday instead of today, because I have the webinar later today. Speaking of future reports, we're doing cash flow projections. And so I was reviewing with her how to use Transaction Pro import and import transactions, which I'm now onboarding a client where I've had to do a lot of that, because almost everything he has goes through PayPal. And I had to catch up January through July on a brand new QBO file. He was using InDeniro before. So I was showing her what that process looks like, because once I've got it all caught up and I'm ready to hand it over to her, she's going to have to do that import every week, to import his PayPal activity. But I can't tell you. All I know, Dennis, is it saved me a ton of time. And at this point, for most of the companies that we have in QBO, I do a once-a-week update on their bank feeds. And I get in there and I go over to the recognized transactions, sort it by payee, so I can clearly eyeball, here are the payees, here are the accounts they're about to get coded to make sure everything looks like it's going in the right place. And oftentimes from there, it's select all, batch, enter, accept selected. It's 3 clicks, and most of the banking is done. I'll have maybe a handful of outliers after that I have to go through a little more slowly and make sure they get coded right. And that's it. So a lot of times the weekly bank feed update is no more than 15 minutes at the most, probably even less than that. What do you think, Deborah?
What? About QuickBooks Online?
How much time do you spend in QBO bank fees keeping up to date for clients? I mean, it's nothing, right?
I just love what, Christopher Reagan said last week, the time that they spend now doing that QBO.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's really, Monday morning I sit down and do it, and it's done for the week.
Yeah.
And I know, my husband, the dinosaur, he says, I don't understand why we have to move them all to QBO, blah, blah, blah. And I said, do you realize the time it now takes to produce what we produce for desktop clients versus QBO clients? And he doesn't get it. I mean, he keeps telling me how old he is. Well, he's always going to be older than me. And I said, the old way, we go to the client, pick up the work, bring the work back. We enter the transactions. We prepare the report. We'd take it back, and then we'd get the check. And many times when we go to pick up the work, half the work wasn't there. Where they go and go back to get it a second time, maybe even a third time. It's all there. There's no paper. I said, have you ever noticed that most of the clients that I deal with, we never see them? There's no paper. I can do it anywhere. Have you made that connection?
Yes, and Deborah, honestly, I think it's hard for people to see until they actually experience it.
Right.
They actually experience how much faster it really is when you're processing that way.
I think he just doesn't get it. I mean, he's still to this. This is how. Okay, we have our own. I put our books on QuickBooks Online, and he will not log into QuickBooks Online to see what last year's tax return amount was for this guy. So what he does is he actually pulls up Microsoft Publisher and writes the invoice over top the last invoice and prints out 3 copies, one for him, one for me, and one for the customer. And he puts my invoice in the basket, which then I have to put into QBO. And then he likes to paper copy of the invoice, so I keep it in a book. Here's his book of all of his invoices for the year.
Oh, God. It looks like a nice, neat book, though.
Yeah.
All of these books back here are all of our bills in paper form. And they're all scanned.
Speaking of, I'm glad you brought that up because I learned last night that apparently the Goodwill, the Goodwill company where you can donate your clothes and stuff, they have a shredding service apparently.
Oh, really? Good.
Where the security is actually really good on it, and so I'm just saying shredding.
But here's all of our bills. So I have a notebook of bills. So when they're all tabbed, you can see all the tabs for all the vendors.
It looks gorgeous. It's
it's really neat and tidy. At the end of the year, I got to put a new set together. And he goes, I like the paper. If I ever need the paper. And I'm like, you never look at the paper. But it makes him happy. And, I pick my battles. That's not the hill I want to die on. So, but it's like, the time savings of QBO and using HubDoc and LedgerSync. And, of course, these apps have a cost. And I tell when I'm buying the apps, I tell the vendors, I said, please don't bill me monthly. Bill me annually. Yeah. Because then I only have to listen to my husband complain once a year instead of 3 times. So they do. And if I need a 3-year contract, that's fabulous. For 3 years, I don't have to listen to him. In fact, one time we almost got divorced over an $8 app. He sells on eBay, and I'm signing up for it. So it was like $78, and it was Agility. It was coming in. I thought, great, I don't have to go to PayPal. Great. So he goes, what are you buying now? And I said, I'm buying this app. I can't believe, he went off. And I thought, oh, my God. So I said, all right, I won't buy it. So I was going to a client that day. Good client, good friend of mine, too. So I said, Brett, would you do me a favor? If I gave you $78, would you buy this app? And he did. I pay him every year for it.
Oh, man, I love you in the morning, Sarah.
That's hysterical.
Yeah, just do it in cash.
It was fun.
Just do it in cash, right?
I pay in cash, yes. So I just have these clients out there paying for my apps all over the place.
That's awesome.
That's how I got my first QuickBooks disc to start using, because he was on a DOS program and I came in, we were dating. And I lost my job, and he's a tax and accounting practice, and I was a CPA. So I said, well, I can help you out till I find something. I said, but I want to use this QuickBooks stuff. And he goes, no, I have this DOS program I've written. It works perfectly fine. I go, I don't even know DOS. So I had a client, they had an extra QuickBooks disk, and she goes, oh, you can just have it. I'm like, I mean, so I came home, loaded it up, put all the clients on that, never told him. I designed a template of the invoice that I used to match exactly what that publisher document looks like. He never knew I was using QuickBooks, QuickBooks. And then one day he's looking at this is like 10 years later. And this one client pays his taxes quarterly. So, of course, when you do payroll, it's accrued based on when the paycheck is, not when you actually write the check. So this guy, he looked at the thing and he made his payroll tax quarterly. Of course, it's March, now it's April, and he's not seeing the check to the IRS. Well, this is wrong. There's no check to the IRS in here. I said, yes, because it was expensed in March. That's when, he didn't have paycheck in April. Well, that's not right. I go, what do you mean? He's a cash basis taxpayer. So when he writes the check, I go, no, it's not. No, we've been doing it that way for 10 years. We've been wrong for 10 years. I go, let's call my friend Dave Batten, the CPA, up. So we called Dave. We go, what do you think of this, Dave? I said, if Dave says you're right, I'll change my method. Dave says to Hal, are you crazy? But I argue with him all the time about this stuff. The big thing with sales tax, I said, no, sales tax is an income. It's a liability. Yeah, but they got the money. Yes, it goes on the balance sheet as a credit, not the income statement as a revenue credit. And then when we pay the bill, it comes off the balance sheet. Well, that's not right because they got the money. I'm thinking, oh, my God, how old are you? Did you go to school for accounting? I mean, we have arguments all the time. It's what we talk about.
Obviously, he never watches these videos, right?
No, he never.
I was going to say, I hope not. Not every, just make sure he never sees today.
What are you talking? You're one of those ZIBWAMs again? I go, yeah.
By the way, just shifting gears, I was just looking in the chat, which I had not been looking at. We have some questions in here. So, well, first of all, Larry's comment, first employee can be a key hire for success. You need a partner employee in future success of business because they'll set a marker for any additional employees. Usually some method of profit sharing can help, has the effect of having skin in the game. So, Larry, I'm glad you said that because Erica is my first official hire. She's the first employee I've ever had on payroll other than myself. And I do a revenue share with her. In fact, I don't pay her by the hour. I will never pay somebody by the hour ever again. Everybody they get a base so that I make sure that they're covered for minimum wage law requirements, and then they get a share of the revenue on the clients that they work on. And that's how everybody's compensated. And each week, I love Paychex because I love their service. I get the email from my Paychex rep, and she says, what's Erica's revenue share? And I say, here's Erica's revenue share plus the base equals the total, and that's how her payroll gets run. We do it twice a month, actually.
Now, the thing is I think what you're doing is fabulous. But, of course, you're in California, and you have these wackadoo California laws.
We got to make sure minimum wage is covered. That's the key. And if their hours add up, divided into what they're getting paid to somehow to less than minimum wage, I'm in trouble. That's where we are.
Well, the thing about this overtime law or something, I mean, I know, like, Stacey Byrne just says, we can't do that, blah, blah, blah. She's afraid of her own shadow anyway. And I still love Stacey.
I hope she doesn't watch this.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Hi, Stacey.
So she's always concerned about that.
Meanwhile, Stacey's having an affair with your husband. No, I'm kidding.
So she won't even use 1099 software because she feels she's using a third party, and
Yeah, she's worried about the security. I know. I see a lot of people comment that way at the beginning of the year, and I'm like, come on, get over it. Let's just use
it. I mean, really? But that's certainly her right to feel like that.
Sure, sure.
But they talk about these overtime laws in California. You can't do that in California. And I'm like, I'm so glad I don't live there,
But again,
based on what I hear about you fruits and nuts out there in California.
But again, there's a really simple solution because what I do is, and here's the key. So I take whatever minimum wage is, and they're talking about raising it to $50 an hour. Whatever it is, times 40 hours, that's your base pay, right? That's your base weekly pay. Then what we'll do is we'll give you a revenue share, and we'll treat that base as a draw against the revenue share. So that if your revenue share, because you're being more productive and working on lots of clients and doing great work, amounts to more than that minimum wage figure, which I hope you're not working in a business like this for minimum wage. If you are, then you probably should be doing something else. But bottom line, you're going to get paid at least the minimum that keeps me out of jail, right? But hopefully you're getting paid a lot more than that, because when you figure in the revenue share, again, subtracting the base, you get the difference. Erica gets the base to keep and the difference because she does a lot of stuff for me directly. She also works as my virtual assistant, and so she does a lot for me. So in that particular instance, she gets the base plus her revenue share. Anybody else I ever hire is going to get the base as a draw against the share of revenue.
Okay, so this leads to my next question. You know, I'm all into value pricing, and I don't track my time, and I think if I'm doing that, I shouldn't have my staff do that, and I do not.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, with this new hourly overtime crap, I mean, if they get their job like this, the month ended this week, and it was the end of the quarter. You know, we had finished out the quarter, so there was payroll. July's a busy month. Well, we finished Monday, so we had 4 days of like, whatever you want to do. I said, go home. You know, she got the same pay. So it didn't matter to me that she wasn't here because we worked hard those other 3 weeks.
Right.
You know, so if she can get the work done in 15 minutes, I'm going to pay her the same.
Right.
You know,
that's the beauty of it. And Erica sees that as an opportunity, just as I do, that if she learns how to do her job better and she has a resource, who can train her on how to do anything better and faster using all the apps, then she makes more money, because if she can get the job done, if she's getting paid, you know, let's just say $600 a month to do a client's bookkeeping, and all it really takes for her to do is get in there for 15 minutes once a week to massage and babysit the bank feeds, then she can make a shitload of money, frankly, because she can take on so many more clients and do the same thing. And that's the other reason I decided to insist on using just one accounting system, QuickBooks Online, because then I create a homogeneous, repeatable system that can be applied to every single one of our clients. And that way,
I was so happy that I heard that from you last week. I'm thinking, he's finally getting it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I've had it for a while, but then it was a question of how do we transition the existing clients, and a lot of them I just kind of made go away. It was like, at a certain point I said, okay, either you're going to come on board with me and evolve with me into the future, or find someone else. And in one case, I almost felt bad because it was a longtime client. I'd worked with her for many years, and she was wonderful to work with. But ultimately, I didn't have the time that she needed me to give her in order to really do a proper job of her accounting and bookkeeping, especially because, I'm sitting there and I'm trying to say, let's use shoebox.com. She had papers everywhere. I'm like, let's get this shit scanned so that we can organize it and manage it properly. And what she wants to do is take a piece of paper and mark it up in her handwriting and hand it to me and then have me enter it. And then she wants to know, where's the entered stamp on that piece of paper so I know it was entered into QuickBooks. And I said to her, do you realize you're taking me backwards about 10 years when you're asking me to
20,
do
yeah, 5.
I remember I used to have a little entered stamp that I would, boom, stamp, enter, stamp. And I'm like, you have the museum going. I don't even have mine. You know what I do have that's funny, though? This is total ADD. Hold on. I love bringing this out. I have Vegemite.
Oh, that tastes terrible.
It does. It tastes terrible. What I learned from Loretta, who's my BFF from Australia, is that you have to have it the tiniest amount on bread with a lot of butter, and then you don't taste it.
Well, then why bother?
Apparently, because it's very healthy. This is jam-packed with vitamins and all kinds of healthy stuff. It's actually really good for you. So that's why I bother. But anyway, so back to the pricing thing. Ultimately, I sort of fatigued the client to the point where she realized she had to get somebody else because I just refused to spend the extra time that was needed to spend. I tried to tell her many times, look, you need to find somebody else. I was very direct with her. And then eventually she did. And then I worked very closely with that new bookkeeper to transition everything. And, the reality is I think she's so much better off with the new bookkeeper because it's always, we talk about, specializing in certain industries, and it's the right job for the right client. It's the right tools for the right job. And this client was an interior designer, and this bookkeeper moved her over to Studio Webware, which is great for interior designers. And it does a lot. It does the bookkeeping. It does the bank feeds. It does a lot of what QBO will do. I don't know if it handles the accounting side quite as well, but for the interior design side, it's amazing. I mean, they can really manage their interior design projects inside and out very well because these are very visual. So they need to have photos of all the things that they want to show the client. Do we want this pillowcase or that pillowcase or, and all that's just built into one unified app. And I'm like, God bless. You know, I'm glad she's better off without me. I feel better off because I don't feel like I'm being weighed down by a client who wants to maintain what I regarded as very archaic systems.
Right.
And she refused to let me take her into, you know, this century. So yeah, you know, that was the last client I had that was still on desktop. I had actually moved her into QBO this year. She let me at least go that far. But yeah, and then so little by little, what happened was the clients actually mostly that were on desktop just sort of phased out as I brought in new ones, and my focus is on the QBO, you know, and now I'm at the point where I'll insist on it. And if a client comes in, like I said earlier, and they don't want to go to QBO, I had one client come in and he tried to get me to put him into Xero, the one who was in InDeniro. He suggested Xero, and I said, nope. I said, I won't do Xero on a consulting. I'll train you. I said, if you want to do Xero, I will train you, and I'll teach you how to use Xero. I know the product very well. But I'm not going to bring in a consulting client using Xero because it screws up my homogenization of my business.
Yep.
You know,
that's what I tell. I really don't think, in my opinion, clients care what platform we use. They're looking for a result, a financial statement or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I happen to use QBO, as most of you do. And, you know, so if they come and say they want to use Xero, I said, why do you care? I mean, you know, you hired me. I'm the expert.
Right.
And this is what I'm expert in.
Right.
So, you know, there are experts in Xero. But I said, you know, you're asking me like when I go to the dentist and he says, oh, I use Crest to brush your teeth. And I said, well, I'm a Colgate girl. You know, he's not going to switch his toothpaste because I like Colgate. I got to use Crest or I got to find a new dentist. So that's your choice.
Yeah, it's like I'm going to sit there going, hey, that thing you're about to stick about, I don't think I wouldn't use that one. Can you?
No, I like this other model.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, so, you know, it's like when I get my car fixed. I don't take it to a BMW dealership to get fixed. I take it to the Mercedes. They focus on that. That's what they do.
Yeah.
You know, I don't go to the BMW place and say, you know, I want you to fix my Mercedes. Reformat your whole shop so you can fix me.
Yeah.
You know. No.
You know, somebody asked why my client is leaving InDeniro. I think it was Sarah who asked that. He said to me, I've had only a very superficial look at InDeniro. I really can't speak to it myself. What the client told me was that they were making a lot of mistakes. He was catching a lot of errors.
Really?
What is it?
It's a product which where it really outsources your bookkeeping service. So they have the accounting product, and they do it all for you. And it's sort of like outsourced accounting and bookkeeping.
Mm-hmm.
It's their platform.
And they claim like, I've been in their office because we were looking at it at one point, and they, you know, claim that these people have all these experiences and degrees, and they're pretty diverse group of people. They can actually do your taxes and their package deal and so forth. But when I started asking really detailed questions about, you know, the employee side of it, how do you track employee pay, all of the things that you sort of need, oh, it's lump sum. It's lump sum. I'm like, how do you know? How do you get the details out of that? And it got squishy, and the conversations turned uncomfortable slightly because I was really asking for what it is that I do every day. I'm like, well, I want to go look something up. I want to go into the software and go find what I need. I don't want to go find a piece of paper. And so it's an interesting conversation. That's what I was asking, because they were quoting around $1,200 to $1,500 a month for us just to do that work. So,
because I think a lot of accounting firms, they are looking at they're producing just the financials, which are, you know, the balance sheet, income statement, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You know, when you use QuickBooks correctly or optimally, you can get so much more information.
Yeah.
You know, so I said the financial statements are just one little tiny piece. I mean, we want to know the profitability of an item that you sold, which is your biggest month. I mean, all of this stuff that the accounting can tell you, not just a financial statement. You know, that's really only for the bank and the IRS. You care about them?
Yeah.
You know,
their answer to that was, oh, you should go use this other platform that will integrate with our platform. So I'm like, wait a minute, you're asking me to go buy something else, to use something else that I can currently do in desktop and or QB Online.
Right.
What's the benefit to that? I'm trying to figure out the benefit here.
Right.
So, yeah, that was their answer. It's funny that you say that.
Yeah. Because that's what a lot of these, you know, these bench, you know, blah, blah, $125 a month. I mean, they're just basically producing simple financials.
Yeah.
They're not giving them the depth and the knowledge and all the other values that we bring. So, you know, if a client wants to pay $125, go ahead, go to bench. I'm not going to compete. I can't compete with that. Don't want to compete with that. You're not my customer.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's the key right there is, a lot of times the clients will try and get us to sort of compete on price with a service. Like, in fact, this guy was with me in the beginning when we were first talking. He was telling me, oh, InDeniro is only charging this. And I said, then stick with InDeniro. And then I wanted to charge him, $500 a month for all the catch up for January through July. I wanted $3,500 to get started. Mm-hmm. And he really balked at that and said, God, he says, that seems very unusual to charge for all that catch up work. I thought that was included in the setup fee, and the setup fee is usually $500. And I said, I'll tell you what, I'll waive the setup fee, but you're still paying the $3,500. For all that work. I said, because I got to do that work. And we've already established that the value of what I'm doing is $500 a month. So if I have to do that, if I have to provide you with that same value for those 7 months that need to get caught up now. Mm-hmm. And at one point in the conversation, he went back to me and said, well, InDeniro says that, they'll do it for free. So you know what I told him? I said, then have InDeniro catch it all up and then turn it over to me, and we'll just do $500 a month starting in August. And he was like, no. And, and ultimately I said, I'm not going to try and compete with InDeniro. I'm not InDeniro. I actually said to him, I said, look, I'm a boutique firm. I deal mostly with clients that are $1 million and up in annual revenues. And I provide a very personalized service. I keep very close hands on everything so that when you call me and have a question about something related to your books, I can actually answer it. I actually know what the F is going on with your company and your books. I'm actually looking at it with an eye towards the future and how we're going to use this information to grow your company. If all you want is for somebody to compile a set of books so you can get a tax return filed, I am not the guy. I don't even want that client, right? I want the client who understands the value of actually using that information to produce something that's forward and future thinking. And if
do you feel like a lot of these things like that, InDeniro and Benchmark, I think it is, it's that shiny graphs and charts, and it has that dashboard thing, and it just, I don't know, it just kind of appeals to a certain type of person that you need more depth. I need more information than that.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of them don't even know that information is available. They, most customers, people out in the world, they think of accountants as somebody that does your tax return and maybe your payroll. They don't realize all the value that we can bring, and I think that's our fault for not educating them better. Yeah, I think that we in this group here, and all our friends are doing that, but in the general world, so we need to get and become evangelists for this profession, I think.
Yeah, or just lead by example. I think that's the best thing, because at the end of the day, what I've learned is I can sit there and try and convince people that this is what they should do, and it's a waste of my time.
Yeah, what's that saying? A man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
Hey, I'm good at. I'm full of them.
You are.
I love that. All right, we got to wrap up here.
Yeah.
If you haven't already, my cash flow projections webinar is at 11 o'clock. There's still like an hour or two that you have if you want to sign up for it.
Okay, I'm going to go to yours. So.
I do have a question. The Firm of the Future contest is, you have to submit it, and they want you to upload a video where there's no place to.
No, just a photo, from what I understand.
Where do you do that?
I have no clue. I haven't had the time for it.
Because I did and I'm thinking, where do you send the video, the picture? I mean, I did a really great picture. Go look on my Facebook page.
I saw that, actually. I saw that earlier.
I have to go look.
But I'm like, okay, I did it. Now what? So it's like I'm going to be disqualified because I can't figure out where to. I called Seth about it last year. Remember, Seth? I called you. Like, where do you upload the video?
Yep. And last year I barely did it. And I only ended up doing it because somebody at Intuit said, hey, we would really love for you to participate in this. And I was so frustrated because you had to do a video that was like less than 2 minutes, and it had to be below a certain file size.
30 megs.
And that was like, I didn't want to compress it because I didn't want the quality to suffer. So I don't know how people did it. And at the end, I kept just cutting and cutting and cutting until I wound up with like a 30-second video, because that's the only way I was able to get the file size low enough. And after a while, I was like, this has already taken up too much of my time. And so I sent it in knowing there's no way in hell it was going to win. Mm-hmm. And I was fine with that. I was like, okay, you asked me to participate. I participated. I'm in compliance.
I did sign up for QuickBooks Connect this week. Yay
awesome.
Me.
I'm so excited about QuickBooks Connect this year. I think it's going to be so cool.
I wonder who the band is they're going to have. Last year they had, Goo Goo Dolls.
Band? I don't know. It's a good question. Yeah. They're going to have to...
They have Pearl Jam. Pearl Jam!
I told them to try and get
Pearl
U2.
Jam!
I told them I wanted U2.
U2's good, too.
You two would be great. Or, you know, it's funny. I was sitting having lunch with Erica yesterday. We were in a restaurant, and we were talking about something. And, oh, Pearl Jam, nice. Very nice. We were in a restaurant having lunch, and all of a sudden I realized that in the background, the song playing was Billy Joel's My Life. I was like, when was the last time I heard that song?
That's a 70s song, isn't it?
I got like Billy Joel.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny, and so the subject that we were talking about was ironic because we were talking about, like, you know, putting a lot out there and not feeling like you're getting everything back in return that you're putting out there.
Yeah.
That was kind of the subject of the lunch conversation that we were having. And then I stopped. I said, "Do you realize that it's kind of interesting that the song My Life is playing while we're having this particular discussion, and that it's not like a common song that you hear all the time today?" It's just like, okay. Anyway, on that note, I don't want to hold anybody hostage.
Just as long as it's not Justin Bieber. Ugh.
Oh, no. Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, he needs to get sent back to Canada. You know, Trump is worried about, like, not letting other nations into our country. We need to get Bieber out of here. That's who we should be concerned with.
Maybe.
Anyway, on that note, I hope you all have an absolutely fantastic day. Next week, we have Checkbook. We're going to see a demo of Checkbook next Friday. So that's already been on SethDavid.com. Go to the events area. You can register for it. We'll take a look and see. They look hopeful to be actually a competitor to Bill.com, although they don't deal with the, what do you call it, like the big commercial accounts. Like Bill.com, you can easily connect to any major credit card. Theirs is a little more manual for the setup, so they can't deal with those yet, but it's coming. So anyway, we'll see you next week, and I'm assuming Gina's having a hangout later today, 2:30 Pacific, 5:30 Eastern. So
Hey, Seth.
On Facebook. Yes, ma'am.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
I responded to your email.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry you got a little buried in there. So.
No worries. No worries.
Okay.
I was going through some emails, and I was like, I haven't heard back from Sarah, so I'll take a look at it and I'll respond.
Yeah, let me know. Okay, cool. All right, bye.